The views and opinions expressed by the host and guests of this show do not represent their employing agency, department, or organization. All information should be regarded as anecdotal, contextual, and educational, and should not be misinterpreted as legal or medical advice. When you don't know how a recruit's really doing until week 10, that's a problem. TrackWired's field training management software replaces old school paperwork with a clean, automated system. Streamlined reporting, knowledge comprehension, and crystal clear performance trends, all handled in one secure place. TrackWire gives you real-time insight into their field training process so supervisors get real-time visibility, FTOs save hours, and recruits stay on track. If you want to tighten up your FTO program, start by going to trackwire.com. That's TRACwire.com. From interviews to jail calls, Ditto Transcripts delivers fast, confidential, and court-ready transcription for law enforcement agencies. Ditto is CJIS compliant and is already working with agencies all over the U.S., including the Washington State Patrol and the National Park Service Investigations Unit. Get started now at dittotranscripts.com. That's dittotranscripts.com.
And I just remember I'm on my hands and knees and he's in my arms and I'm holding his body. I'm trying to see like where you hurt. And I just looked at him and I was like, baby, I got you. And he just like kind of looked at me and I was like, I got you, baby. It's me. I got you. And he just stopped yelling police and he just looked at me and he closed his eyes and his body just went like.
Welcome to Blue Grit Radio, the podcast that explores making better cops for a better community. I'm your host, Eric Tung. I've been an active police officer since 2007. We will dive into the aspects of police culture, health and wellness, leadership, and mindset. You'll hear from experts not only from policing, but all industries as they relate to being our best with purpose, passion, and positivity. Join me as we share stories, lessons, and advice so we can all be better for ourselves, our teams, our families, and our communities. Hey, Bev, welcome to the show.
Hey, Eric. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad we got connected to learn about your story, to connect offline prior. And you have a very significant story, one of loss and resilience. And we're going to get into that. But also you started police. And I'm trying to remember who connected us right at this moment because it's a little earlier in the morning for me than it is for you on the East Coast.
Yeah. I don't know, was it Catherine, LT's
I
daughter?
think so. Yeah. Shout out Catherine.
Yeah.
Good old Catherine.
I think so.
I think so. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, yes, thank you so much for coming on the show. And as we talked before, we just want to get into it. You have such a profound story that we can all learn a lot from. And then there's also just so much work that you're doing that you are going to share with us today and teach us about today. So we'll just jump into it. Bev, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your entry into police, like your why when you got into our vocation, and then tell us a little bit more about the career.
Yeah, sure. You know, it's crazy. I was just watching Angel Eyes yesterday. You ever like seen Angel Eyes with J-Lo? I don't know if you ever seen it.
No, that's, yeah. I'm not devoutly familiar.
Okay, so I was
Tell me
like,
about it though.
I was like 16 when I watched that movie. And I remember, so in the movie, she's a police officer. And there's like this big almost like fatal car accident. And she like saves the driver's side. Like she saves him. She's like, look into my eyes, like stay with me type of thing. He's a guy, long story short. That was his wife and son that passed away in the accident. He survives. They fall in love, blah, blah, blah. But I was 16 when I watched that movie and just how she was. I remember it was me and my dad watching it and I was like, Dad, what do you think if I was to like become a police officer? Mind you, he has a military background. My dad is very old school, traditional Salvadoran Hispanic man. His mind shift has changed now, but back then he was like, that's the dumbest job a woman can ever take, you know? So, and I remember when he said that, because I was always kind of like a rebellious kid. I was like, noted, that's what I'm gonna do.
Like,
And
you just cemented it, Dad. Like,
oh, perfect, Dad.
yeah.
Done. Here I go. And so I remember as I got older, always had kind of like this desire to want to be either infantry or SWAT or the best of the best of the best for whatever reason. I think my dad had a lot to do with it. And I remember one time police came to our house for a B&E and they really didn't take into consideration my parents. They didn't speak English. They were really rude. My brother was kind of translating. He was the oldest. So he's like translating for them. And they just threw like fingerprint powder very like obnoxiously all over the place. I didn't see any tactics, mind you. Again, I was a little girl, so I'm looking up to them when they walked in the door, like, cool. And then they were just like jerks. So I was like, you know what? When I get older, I'm going to become a police officer. I can take care of my family. And it's just something I've always wanted to do. And when I had the opportunity, I applied to the Prince George's County Police Department. It's where I grew up. I was born in DC, but I was raised here in
Hmm.
Prince George's County. So I applied. I had no idea how someone would become the police. I had no idea. It was just a simple go to a website and apply type of thing. I thought it was like this major process. And within a year of getting my background check, dude, I was 21 when I joined the police academy.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Babies.
Yeah. Babies. Like literally my class retires next year. Yeah.
Mm.
We just
So
had
there's
our,
like a set age, like you're talking about like retirement eligible, or is there
yeah,
kind of a cutoff for you guys out there?
it's a 20-year retirement. So they're
Okay,
eligible
yeah.
20 years. July 10th, we just had our 19th anniversary.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah.
not nothing. I'm coming up on
Mhm.
18 years in a couple weeks here. But yeah, a couple things there. I mean, you told a story about like having this deference and this respect for the uniform and the service, and then encountering like a not so ideal situation, seeing it with your own family. And I mean, I've heard so many stories like that from my time in recruiting, and then, working with people that are trying to get hired now. Like a lot of that call to service, like the call to purpose, and I know you're so big on that now, is sometimes just like anything that we look up to, there's like examples that we want to be like that. And then you nodded to your dad with his service in industry as far as like getting into military career and uniform services, but also like the not so great examples. Like we've all had not great bosses and not great trainers and not great peers, but then we have all those that are kind of bringing us up. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, it was just like, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's like you said, it's a calling because when we do what we do, a lot of people are like, I don't know how you do it. And then it's like, you start, I don't know why I do it either. Cause let's be honest, it's not for the pay.
Hmm.
The hours are crappy, but I wear the uniform and I want to do this thing. Like I
Yeah.
know that this is what I want to do. So and everybody's like, oh, because I want to help people. No, I wanted to be the best of the best. And I was just like, it's badass. That's what I want to do. And
Yeah.
at the time, women weren't able to, be infantry, whatever. Military was different back then. So I was like, well, what can I do that's close to like kicking down doors and taking names? I was like, SWAT team, PG
Mm-hmm.
County, let's go. And
Yeah.
so I applied and there I went. It
Yeah.
took me within a year.
So then, how did your career kick off? Were there any assignments or types of work that you really gravitated towards?
The work that I did, so out of the 10 years, I did 9 in the streets and I did 1 year of detective work. However, what I wanted to do was literally everything else. Like
Yeah.
what really I wanted to do was SWAT, of course, as you know. I tried out 3 times. I didn't get it because of myself. I just there was this a rope that you have to climb and I was just in my head about it because I would train and do the rope every day, every day, every day as
Mm.
like at least 3 times a week as part of my training for tryouts. When tryouts came, I just couldn't get up the rope. It was like this mental block, like, no, you just want
Yeah.
it so bad. So I never got it. But I would have loved to have done that. That would have been my number one. That would have been my number one. And then from there, I was interested in anything that was like kind of like adrenaline kind of thing. So we had like our jump out squads, like our SAT teams back then, the special assignment teams. I liked narcotics. I would have done undercover work. I tried out to all of these things. I got none of those. I got none of them. I tried out for homicide. Some I didn't get because I just wasn't like the SWAT. That was a me thing. And the other ones is all because I just, it's politics and just kind of like either they want you or they don't. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think both are fair to recognize. Like, working with people and in their career development, for sure that can be a thing. And like I appreciate so much like, hey, you tried 3 times. That's not nothing. There's a lot of people that try once at whatever thing. Maybe it's promotion. They're like, "Ah, I guess it wasn't for me. Like,
yeah.
I don't test well is kind of the common thing that people say. And but you kept going and going and going and cool, you're gonna try again and you recognize like, hey, that was me. At the same time, I think, talking to so many people that are trying to step up their game and take more leadership roles in the department, like sometimes it's not you, but like you got to do all you can do and then leverage your talents and try to build relationships and be an asset. And there's all these things like we can take on, but ultimately control what you can control. And you don't technically control your selection. You create the best, kind of canvas for that. But then you were working in detective work, right? I thought I would be a detective. I shared this before just because I was like really studious, academically driven as an adolescent. And the adrenaline was not why I joined the police force. But when I got in, I was like, that's the thing. Right. So I
Mm.
wanted to work gangs or canine. I ended up going canine because you just kind of, devote your energy towards like a specific goal. So what kind of detective work were you working? Because That's not easiest stuff either.
No, it was cool though. It was cool. I enjoyed it, and it was like the lower level crimes. So
Mhm.
theft under where it isn't a felony. If there's a shooting but the person doesn't die, that's mine. Theft, things like that. So we handled those.
Yeah.
Anything greater for obviously with the shooting, if the person dies, you call homicide. If it's over, and then you call, the robbery units. So we would handle kind of like the district low level, crimes. So that's what I would respond to. And I was there, like I said, I was there for a year and then just woke up one day, go to the office, everybody's, all the guys are there. I'm like the only girl there, the only female, and the only Spanish speaking. So go in like any other regular day, check the emails, and there's the transfer list, and there's like 5 people on there. And of course, I'm one of them. And I'm going to midnights back to the streets
Mm.
to like one of our rougher areas. And I was like, okay, I guess that was short lived, but I take what I could take from it.
Yeah. Well, good. Can you tell me a little bit about, we've nodded to your loss, your boyfriend at the time, who was fellow police officer.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I got kicked out of the detective unit. So then I got sent back to the streets to midnights in Oxon Hill, Maryland. And I remember my first time meeting my new squad was for the gun range. They had to qualify at the range before they started midnights. So that's my new squad. I had to go to the range with them.
Mhm.
So I went, and that was my first time meeting them. So you can imagine they're already like, who goes from a specialty unit back to patrol? Like, what did she do? It's like the rumor mill and everything. She
Yeah.
probably can't shoot and all these things. Of course, I get there. I'm a great shot. I even tried being a firearms instructor, by the way. I tried out for that too. So anyway, so we get there, and I remember I'm a good shot. I like shooting. And I remember one of my boys, he was like, "Hey, he was gonna take my spot as a detective," and he looks at me. He's like, "Yo, Perez, when I leave, make sure you take care of my rookie." And he points over to the guy next to him, and I was like, "Who is that?" He's beautiful, and I was like, "Hey, rookie," and he looks at me, and I was like, "I'm gonna take care of you," and he just totally ignored it. He was like nervously like filling up his mag, like trying to qualify in front of his new squad. So
I have
he
a
wasn't thinking
yeah,
about me.
I have a joke in my head. Clearly there are sparks.
Yes, there were sparks for me anyway at the time. He was more focused on, I need to qualify in front of my new squad. Like, he's a new officer and all these things. And so as time went on, I became the senior corporal on the squad group chat. You know how we're like, we keep in touch,
Mhm.
if there's any special assignments, letting everybody know. And he began to text me outside of the group chat. And I was just like, don't do that. Don't ever text me outside of the group chat. And I'm not interested in whatever you have to say. And he's like, hey, I made dinner. Don't you want to come over? I was like, don't stop doing it. That's inappropriate. And then, fast forward one day, he was like, can we go to the gun range? He just needed help shooting, and I was a really good shot. So we go to the gun range and fired like 500 or more rounds. It was good. He's just really nervous, like we all are, but he's a good
Mhm.
shot. So then we leave, and he's like, you want to go get something to eat? And I'm like, fine. And from there on, it was just, we were eating. I remember
Relentless. He's
yeah, I
tenacious,
just
huh?
remember it, dude. We were at a Fridays, like at this Fridays. And I just remember being at this Fridays with him, and it was just, okay, this is happening. And we had to keep it, we kept it under wraps. I'm the
Mhm.
senior corporal. He's literally the rookie. And so I would be only in the office finishing up like roll call paperwork, and then my radio's on my desk, like I'm taking calls, hold me a route, like I'm going. I'm in
Yeah.
the streets with my guys. And so when I would go to like a severe call, I can hear him with lights and sirens coming from all the way the other side, coming to me. And I'm like, hey, dude, you can't do that. Like, I get it. You want to protect me or whatever. I was like, but this is just, I've been doing this. Like,
Yeah.
you can't, because it started to become obvious. Like, why is he always coming from way the other side,
Mhm.
to back, Perez up? Like, that's weird. And it wasn't until he left and went to NED that we started to tell people that we were together.
Okay. Yeah, what's NED?
Narcotics Enforcement Division.
Gotcha. Yeah,
So
everyone's got
yeah.
different acronyms. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. And yeah, can you walk us into the loss?
Yeah, 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 yeah. So March 13th, 2016, there's 3 brothers, Ford brothers, FORD. Been kind of a problem house. We've been called out there before for all kinds of issues, orderlies and all the things. One of the brothers wanted suicide by cop. So he went to what was at the time our headquarters. It's a building that sits in a residential area, like right across, there's houses. On the other side,
Mhm.
there's like a mini shopping center. Next to headquarters, there's like a community center, like a rec center. And so it's a quite a little busy area. And he just starts shooting up at the police station. Coincidentally, I had a special assignment there. That wasn't my normal station. It was a special assignment that I was working, and Jakai was bringing food for me. We had just been together that morning. Oddly enough, he proposed to me that morning. So
Oh
it was
my
just like
gosh.
to me, it was like everything I ever wanted, to hear from him. It was weird, but I was so excited, and we just couldn't wait to get off our shifts and go to one of my family's cookouts, having like a little get together. And so yeah, he ends up responding just to drop off food. He's undercover, so he has no idea that this is going on. I immediately call him once I got wind of it. I'm going priority, and I'm like, "Hey, where are you at?" "I'm here. I got the food." I was like, "No, like get out of the area." Well, he did what we all would do. He responded. He was one of the first ones there. He sees the bad guy shooting at the police station, so he jumps out of his car, fires 13 rounds at the bad guy, one of which hit the bad guy. He had like a beer belly, so the bullet went through and through, which
Mm,
was enough to put, the bad guy down. And as Jakai kept running, he had his gun in his hand, and I don't know if he was running for cover or running for one of the brothers because they were like recording their brother as he was shooting at the station.
yeah.
And another officer saw Jakai and mistakenly like thought he was the suspect and shot him.
Yeah.
I'm like literally second officer to respond, and I see him. I hear him first because we're trained to drive with our windows down. It
Hmm.
was a rainy Sunday. I'm in a Crown Vic, but I heard him screaming. And when I looked, I saw him. I actually had passed him. So then I backed my car up and did everything I was trained to do. I know that, the Crown Vics, they house the most metal in the front, like in the hood. So use that as like a shield. So I put
Hmm.
that in front of him. I duck walked with my gun out, like behind the car, and I threw my body over him, and when I pointed my gun out to see who was firing, like I saw police. So I holstered, and I just had to like be with him, and his eyes are rolling back and he's yelling police, like trying to identify himself, but he's choking. I can tell he's choking on his blood. So he's like, "Police, police." And I just remember I'm on my hands and knees and he's in my arms and I'm holding his body. I'm trying to see like where you hurt. And I just looked at him and I was like, "Baby, I got you." And he just like kind of looked at me and I was like, "I got you, baby. It's me. I got you." And he just stopped yelling police and he just looked at me and he closed his eyes and his body just went like limp. And I was like, "Oh, fuck no." So that's when I saw officers come. I guess they realized what had happened and they created kind of like this horseshoe around us facing out. And somebody was like, "Whose cruiser is this?" And it was mine because it was right there. They start taking everything out the back seat and we pick him up and put him in the back seat. And people always question me about this, but I drove. Like there was nobody else that was going to drive him. It had to be
Hmm.
me. So I get in the driver's seat. My homeboy's in the back seat with Jakai, kind of giving him chest compressions. And I drive like the longest 13 minutes ever to the hospital. And I don't even know, like when I look at the dash cam, because I do have a copy of it, you can hear my homeboy Katz, who's giving the chest compressions, you can hear him saying, slow down, like grounding me. And you just see the speed go down. Like
Mm,
I don't know, had he not been back there, the way I was driving, I mean, there was like two pedestrians that I almost hit. Like you could see it in the dash cam. And I was like,
mhm.
goodness. Make it to the hospital. I lose my mind in the hospital. They kick me out of the emergency room. I'm like hitting stuff. I'm like, I told him not to come. I fucking told him not to come. I'm like just losing my mind. I'm watching them cut his shirt open and they're like, trying to bring him back and his body's just like lifeless moving. And I'm just like, I have my hands on my head, like, what the fuck? I take my gun belt off. I take everything off. I'm punching the walls and everything. And they're like, get her out of here. I'm like, no, because when he wakes up, he's gonna want to see me. He doesn't know me. And one of my boys that I used to work with, he just like comes and bear hugs me and takes me outside. He was like, "You gotta let them work on him, Bev." And next thing you know, I go to, they put me in the family room and the chief comes in and he tells me, Marion, that's my first name is Marion. It's like, Marion, Jakai's gone. And I lost. At that point, my brother, my sister, my parents, and two of my classmates were there. Um, and they allowed me to go see him, and I was the first one to be allowed to see him. I remember the chaplain of like, I guess the hospital was there and he still had like a little bit of grass and stuff like on his beard and I'm like kissing his forehead, I'm kissing his eyes, his nose, I kissed his lips and his cheeks and I'm like, you gotta wake up. I was like, you have to wake up, wake up, wake up. He just looked like he was sleeping and he was still warm, but obviously he didn't. And I just, that was the start of like, I want to say the end of the old Bev because there's a new one now. I'll never be the same,
Yeah.
but not a it's not a bad different, but it's a good different now, but it was a bad different at first.
Yeah.
Yeah, here we are.
That's absolutely devastating. And I really appreciate you sharing your story. And I know, I mean, we talked before about sharing that as far as a lot of why you do what you do and why you've shifted a lot of your focus and your energies and passion alongside the original what brought you into police. But thank you for sharing Jakai's story too. And it is there's so many layers, and I don't really want to get into the weeds on it unless there's something that kind of recalls to you to speak on. But certainly many of us, we have people that are, also like in relationships or marriages, engagements, with other first responders. Sometimes it is cops, sometimes it is the same city and the same district. And so, like, that is a very heavy thing that people have to contend with and navigate. At the same time, we all know the dangers being out there. And we all know there's few things more devastating in law enforcement than blue on blue. And, my heart instantly goes out to, the officer involved on the other end, trying to do the best they can with what they have and the inputs and what they recognize or think they recognize at the time. And so it's not to get in the weeds on any of those things, but it is to say, like, thank you so much for sharing. Are there things in your grief process, and not like it's done, these things aren't just like, oh, it's a
Right.
on and off switch, that you found were most helpful to you in that, and you talk about old Bev, and we'll return to that too. But anything stick out to you that you generally reflect on?
It's gonna seem so lame, but I gotta just talk about it.
Yeah.
Just even talking about it, every time I share his story, the more I talk about it, the less power I give it.
Mm.
That story ran my life for 4 years. I was living in March 13 of 2016, 1630 for 4 years. I was living in that space. Nothing was going to take me away from that space. I was dreaming, I was having nightmares of that space. I would have nightmares about the same incident, but the players were different. It was a security guard that I couldn't save at a shooting at a mall or something. So I lived in that space and I was quiet about it. Because I was like, nobody understands. Nobody's going to get it. Unless you've been through something exactly the same, you don't understand. And I realized that's completely unfair. Like, my trauma is not going to look like yours. My grief isn't going to look like yours, but we know how to feel sad. We know how to feel angry. We have all, as humans, we have that. So to talk about it was about the best thing that I could ever do. And every time I share it like this, not only does it help and heal me, I hope that it helps and heals someone else, because that's the goal, is to help, not to hurt. And at the same time, I honor him.
Mhm.
I honor me, honor kind of what happened that day and everybody involved. So talking about it, number one, has helped me with my grief. Reminiscing on Jakai, period. Just talking about Jakai, the good old days, the funny things that he used to say or do, that's very helpful too to me. And then
Yeah.
more so like on a cognitive, like, you have to get out of your head and into your body, like working out, you know that, like hitting the gym or just movement, man, even just swimming or going for a walk. Those types of things have always been super, super helpful for me. Like,
Yeah.
just on the most basic, easiest surface level thing that you can do for free are those two things for
Yeah. I love that. There's such a profoundness in the simplicity. I recently heard this, and it's kind of like it's talking about specifically the movie Up, like the Pixar
me.
movie, but it's talking about old man Carl and how, the majority of his story is grief, right? Like the intro, for those that have seen it, like, every time someone brings it up, or like I watched it with my kid, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, this is the most like emotional intro to
Yeah.
any Pixar movie. But essentially, it's like him refusing to let go. And then I heard this kind of quote, to paraphrase, is like, when you're in grief, you holding on to the grief is like your attempt to keep them, so but once you process the loss, whatever that takes, whether it's a year, 4 years, 10 years, like, the fear and the resistance can be like not wanting to lose them a second time, or losing them, quote unquote, for good. And we know we've all lost people, but it's different. It's definitely different when you're in that space. Reminiscing, or ruminating might be a better word, because it's not really serving you, right? It's not serving the people that are around you that need you. And that's kind of what the commentary was about that movie too, right? There's this kid, there's all these
Mhm.
characters that are like, we need you, dude, and he's not there for him, right? He's fixated on the old house and all that. That's what came to mind.
No,
And then
you're
yeah.
right on with that. Sorry, no, you're right on, because I
Yeah.
literally had a friend tell me, "You need to break up with him." I'm like, "Break up with who?" This is like
Mm,
5 years later, and she's like, "You're still in love with him." She's like, "And you want love, but you're still in love with him." I'm like, "No, I'm not." She was like, "Then let him go." And the way I started crying immediately right there in front of her, like, what do you mean let him go? Why do I have to let him go? And she was like, "See what I mean?" And my mom and my sister was like, "Oh, we're so glad she mentioned it, because we didn't know how to tell you that you were in love with a ghost. We don't know how to tell you that, because we love you. We don't hurt your feelings, but you gotta let him go." And I did. Eventually I did.
yeah.
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah, and I know, and we're gonna this my pause is because we connected, and I'm gonna be on your show after we're recording this one, and
Mm,
I know that you're gonna ask about Diego and losing a buddy in the line of duty. But that's such a thing, right? And I've shared this before, where before I went to therapy electively, and I hadn't talked to a therapist or a psychologist since getting hired for the like required stuff, but I was always like, oh yeah, peer support therapy, like go go go. But I never really you know, I guess submitted or, invited myself to partake until a buddy, one of our other buddies was like, dude, you need to go talk to someone. Cause I would just talk through the incident every single day with my wife or my now wife or, um, like my shoot, I mean we were married then, but or one of my buddies, like kind of talk through the day, kind of like you're sharing, like kind of just ruminating. And there is value to that. And as you said, like you talked about it and you felt yourself kind of maybe get freed from it holding this control or this pain, which is why I'm such a fan of you talking to someone, you meaning anyone talking to someone in their way. But for me, it was kind of like spinning your wheels, not getting anywhere. So I do like that you share that because situation's different for everyone. And I also love that you recognize like the power of these free things, right? Like movement and getting outside. Like these are restorative things that like literally are metabolizing like the angst and the stress hormones. And that's like sitting in your body, right? The body keeps a score, and that's a phrase or a book that more and more first responders are getting, I guess, socialized with. So,
Yeah. And I always bring that book up because it's so true.
mhm.
And it's like you mentioned with grief, as it pertains to grief, like somebody said this, or I don't know if I saw it somewhere. It's like it's like imagining grief as like this big boulder. Like as soon as somebody passes away, right? And like you have this big boulder. And what happens is this big boulder doesn't become smaller, you just become stronger. So then over time, this boulder is no longer this big heavy. You're just like, you're bouncing it up and down. Like you're strong. Like, you can lift that weight. You can throw that weight across, across the field if you wanted to because you get stronger. But the way you get stronger is you got to find your way. There's no one way towards healing. Everybody has their own thing. I'm a water girl. I'm a swimmer. I'm a surfer. I like being on the water. I like surfing, fishing. Those are my jams. That's not for everybody. We'll find what works for you. But I guarantee what works for you is something that you've always known to have loved, whether it's running or dancing or singing or the guitar or that old friend that always reached out and you were never had time for them. It's something like that really doesn't cost.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you have to find whatever your thing is and go to that. And over time, as you apply that over time, you just get stronger. It doesn't go away. It doesn't go away. We just learn how to live with it. And so that's kind of like where I'm at. And I'm going to tell you, like, honestly, Eric, like September 2016, I had a suicide attempt. I was ready to be with Jakai. I couldn't stand it. I was like, I can't. Nope. It doesn't matter. It was like you wake up. I don't know, if people, like when your first love or whatever and you break up and the next day you just have like this emptiness. You just feel like this emptiness, like, man, where's my gosh. Yeah, the difference is that I woke up with that emptiness and I couldn't reach for the phone and text him. It was just it was so like a definite just change that you just rip somebody one day they're there, the next day they're literally just gone. I can't text him, I can't call him, I can't kiss him, smell him. I'll never hear his voice again. You know what I mean? It was just so definite that I was like, I can't do it. Because I don't want to be here. And I was just like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. And September of 2016, I had my suicide attempt. Thank goodness I survived it. However, I was committed to not being here. And so you got to realize when you're in that space and you had a suicide attempt, you're likely to attempt again. So the way that I have to maintenance myself, like you maintenance a car, Bev has a maintenance. Like, cars have oil changes, you got to rotate the tires and all these things. My maintenance is gym, talking about it, and all the other things that swimming, being in the water, if I can go to the ocean and talking about it. Like I have things, I have to meditate. If I don't meditate, like in a month, if let's say I just go a whole month without meditating, you're going to notice it because I'm going to be I'm going to just be a jerk. Like
Yeah.
I have to do, so it's like these maintenance things, but you have to find what works for you. I didn't know what was going to work for me because I had never been in that space before. So for folks that are new to grief, and grief is nasty, death is nasty, people get nasty. It's just gross because the person that's gone can't advocate and speak for themselves and delegate. Hey, I want them to talk at my funeral. I want you to give them this praise or give that person this. And you, I don't know you. I don't want you to talk about me like this ain't no dog and
Mhm.
pony show. They're not there to do that. So it's like this show that's ran by people that whatever, and it's very hurtful. It's very mean. It could be very nasty. So if you're going through grief and you're just like navigating through it and you don't have the opportunity to grieve, give yourself that opportunity to grieve and find your thing. And you'll find that whatever your thing is gonna, you'll be okay.
Yeah.
You're gonna be okay.
Thank you
Yeah.
for bringing up the power of habit, the power of routines that you just spoke on, and you were speaking on it before, as far as like, um, just making sure you're doing the things that serve you, the things that are maybe they're harder because you're out of habit, you're out of practice, right? It takes intention. So reaching out to that friend, there's all these reasons, right? Life it gets busy and
Yeah.
shifts and all this, and they're like an hour away, whatever, like fill in the blank. But just having that intention to like restart that and get a schedule going. You talked about if you don't meditate for X amount of time, you're going to know it, you're going to feel it, people around you are going to know it. Uh, so I appreciate the routine, the nods to that. I'm so huge on that. I think that is so powerful for so many of us. What was helpful in your recovery away from the suicide attempt, like before you got like on into all these routines? Was there something that was able to help you kickstart that or get you on the path to that?
Yeah, I had to find one. I had to find at least one why. Why be here? So I couldn't find one. And the way that I found one is once I survived it, I got home and I remember looking at my mom's face and she just had like this very, very sad look. And I'm like, Ma, are we come like a Hispanic household. They don't talk about depression, suicide, all this stuff. So I'm like, Mom, are you mad at me? And she's like, I'm not mad at you, Mija. I'm just sad because I don't know how to help. And she had this look of desperation. Like I'd never seen my mom look like that before. And I was like, I do not want to be the reason why she looks like that. So then I'm going to choose life every day for her. She became my why. A lot of pressure. She doesn't know that. I needed something to reason. The minute I woke up, I wanted to die. And then I would think about my mom. I'm like, just 1 second, Bev, just 1 second, every second, and turn it into a minute, we'll turn it to an hour, and we'll be within 24 hours, and it'll be tomorrow. Just think about mom. And every day, like I had a why. And then it became like my dog, Dino, RIP to the big guy. Then it become like my nieces and my nephew. Then it became this and this and that until eventually I started getting stronger and it became now I wake up and my why is me. I want to be here because I want to
Mm,
be here. I have work
yeah.
to do. I'm doing good work. But if you just have to choose, you have to find a why. Like think about whether you do ice cream with your niece every Wednesday or that football you want to see your son become the best baseball player. Let that be your why. But we just have to find a why to keep you going one more 24 hours, then another 24, and then another 24. That's what the smallest first thing was for me to stay
Yeah.
alive.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's so powerful, and again, it's like the simplicity of it, and we come into this industry, first responder work, we have this big why, right? Like, we don't wanna do the thing in all these ways, and that looks different for everyone, but it's generally this very big, idealistic, value-driven, virtue-driven thing, and then so to recognize, like, "Hey, it's baby steps, like, just get to tomorrow," and not like our moms are not a big thing, but, like, yeah, when from everything I've learned from those that have felt suicidal, survived an attempt, when it's shared, because I think the naivety, I had this when I was younger, was that when people suicide, it's selfish, right? Like, oh, you're leaving everyone behind, to like, but it's the opposite, right? Like, tell me if you feel differently or personally, but it's like it's farther from the truth because when people get to that place, they think that's the most helpful thing they can do
Yeah.
for those around them. But just to shift that paradigm, it's because you got to shake someone in that space, and people have to shake themselves when they're in that space. And I love how you just are like, I'm just gonna do it for mom for now, right? Like, and
Hmm.
just that simple mantra, whatever that focus is, can be so significant and powerful.
Yeah. When you're in that moment, you're not being like selfish, haha, it's about me. You're like, I'm doing this for y'all because I'm just in the way.
Hmm.
I'm like a big fucking burden. All I could think about was the first funeral that my sister-in-law, my brother's kids who are like my babies. The first funeral they've ever gone to was his. What if I would have never met him? What if I would have never brought him to the family? And then you got to think about the survivor's guilt of just losing him in general.
Yeah,
He was dropping food off for me. He didn't have to be there.
yeah,
Oh goodness. The best idea in my mind at the time was get rid of myself. Why him? Why didn't any of those bullets hit me? I don't have to be here. What am I doing? I can't even get into a specialty unit. Nobody likes me. Nobody wants to get like all these things. You hate yourself and it's such a nasty, dark place that I loathe. I don't hate things. I hate suicide. Like I hate how you feel when you're in that suicide mindset. It is so nasty down there. and you're just like, I'm so in the fucking way. If I could just get out of the way, my nieces and nephews won't have to think about that day. My mom, you think I wanted my parents to go to a police funeral? You think about that and you see your little picture and you're like, that's never gonna happen. My parents will never have to go to one of those. And they had to go to one of those. The 21 gun salute, the whole like dog and pony show, and everybody in their class A's and crying and all this. I was like, because of me? They're here because I met someone, that I brought someone into their life and this happened. What else am I gonna fuck up? Like, get rid of me, man. I'm not bringing no good to y'all. It wasn't selfish because it was selfless. Let me do y'all a favor. Because if I wasn't here, you guys wouldn't have experienced that. Who knows how much worse I'm gonna contribute to you all's lives. That's how nasty it is. And you convince yourself of this thing, then you come up with a plan and then you execute. Goodness forbid it goes through. Hopefully we survive them. The goal is that you survive it and come over it, like on this side where me and you now can talk about it. But yeah, you're right. It's not because I was doing it for Bev. I'm doing it because y'all gonna be better without me. Trust me. That's just how convinced you are.
Yeah.
It's just nasty.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think through underlining the survivor's guilt, and it takes on so many forms, and people find these really sneaky ways to make it
Mhm.
like their fault, or this went that way, it could have been different, or maybe it could have been different if I had been there or had been somewhere else or looked in something differently. And was there something that you recall that helped shake you out of that theme?
Yeah. What helped me get out of that theme is it's a lot of, so it's called dialectical behavioral therapy, like DBT. But really, when you do DBT or you learn about it, it almost kind of gets you to what's referred to as a radical acceptance. It's
Hmm.
just and basically what radical acceptance is, just accepting what it is for what it is. Very surface. You are not that powerful, Bev, to have controlled that incident, to
Yeah.
have puppeteered how that situation would have happened. Like you're just not that powerful. And I'm not saying he was meant to go in that way. No, it's just what happened happened. And we can't attach any, like, I can't should have, would have, could have. Okay, so now let's entertain those. Like it's a coping ahead. Entertain the should have, would have, could have. Now what? He's still gone. March 13th, 2016 still happened. And you have to accept that it happened. And
Hmm.
now that day has gone and you're still here and you're still living with it. And I had to kind of like come to, and I'm like, wait a minute. It's been 4 years and I've been living in the same day. And I'm like, how am I honoring him? How am I honoring me? I'm like, I didn't go through all that just to be this. And you just kind of have like this wake up where you start to recognize, okay, it happened. Now, how do I live with what happened? And then I start to think, maybe I can help people with this. Maybe other people are going through the same thing and I don't want them to go through the same thing. I want to be the person that I never had when I went through this. So how do
Mm.
I become that? And you just kind of start like going into a rabbit hole in that direction. So the first thing, radical acceptance. There was no control your controllables. It's gone. It's done. What happened, happened. It is what it is. It's fucked up. It's not fair. That's life. Things happen. We're going to have to overcome trauma and grief always, forever, every human. So what's next? Like,
Yeah.
dust yourself off. Let's go. Like, let's move.
Yeah, man, and I'm gonna cut in because I think stoicism, like the philosophy, resonates with a lot of us because we see so much bad stuff. Just that's the job, right? You
Right.
respond to stuff that's not great, and so what can we control? And you just said it, right? Control your controllables, but we're beyond that. It happened. It's done. And
Yeah.
that's the a way to apply. Like it is what it is. But my mentor's been throwing this out, and I've been ruminating on it in different ways, work and life. But like kind of what you just said is making me think of it. But it's so what now? What like here we are, this is where we're at. I
Oh,
do want to say like one person caused that tragedy and is the suspect. Truly, like that is the one pin you could change, but we can't, right? So I think that's really healthy to acknowledge when we get into these situations or we get to a call and it didn't go great. We didn't get to the victim in time, what have you. One person caused that and it's not us. And
yeah.
same for your experience that you shared about. But yeah, the so what now what? And you're kind of, this is the perfect segue. And I know we want to talk about this, but I'll call it your superhero origin story because I
Mhm.
think there's so much power in whether people stay specifically in the career and they find their niche or whether they're like, yeah, the police or fire got me into this thing and now I'm working in this space as a byproduct, right? And so as far as like your origin story to what you're doing now, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So of course, as I mentioned, I wanted to be the person I never had. So I immediately started kind of involving myself in things, kind of fell on my lap a lot of it. The surfing, swimming kind of fell in my lap. And I started to realize I was meditating, I was surfing, and I was doing all these things and I was getting better. I was getting stronger. That boulder wasn't as heavy. And I was like, wait a minute, I feel like I'm getting the keys to life. Like, I'm figuring this stuff out. And it's not like no major, it's not like a pill or all these things. It's just this is stuff.
Hmm.
I'm like, I feel like I need to give this back to those who are still out there, to those that are retired and know what it feels like to the minute you're no longer a part of this agency, you're not getting invited to the cookouts, you're not in the group chat, you're just Joe Blow citizen. Like
Yeah.
everything you did never happened. That's just how it felt to me. And so I was like, how do I give this back to them? And so I started training myself. I started getting certified as a group facilitator. I started getting all these certifications on suicide awareness and prevention, just kind of like building, if you will, my new gun belt, my new
Yeah.
tool belt, right? Like
Hmm.
I'm training myself with it. And I even went back to school. I got my master's, because I know there's a fine line between helping and hurting. And I wanted to know all the theories. And then I started my business, and that's the Bev Perez. And what I do is coaching and consulting. And I work with first responders, law enforcement is my baby. I'll go to agencies. I'll help them if they don't have a peer support and they want one. What does that look like? If they need trainings on suicide awareness, prevention, emotional intelligence, all those jams. Like I will go in and give you a week training or a day training, a 2-hour training. That's what I think is important. I think it's important to continue to do them. It shouldn't be like a one off, but to each their own. And then I work with law enforcement, first responders individually on a one-on-one. So we talk about trauma and grief. My baby is love. That is my baby. Too often I've dealt with, or I've met first responders that are dealing with intimacy issues, or they're thinking that they have a sex addiction, which, there's a difference between having a sex addiction or a high sex drive,
Hmm.
and kind of navigating those worlds, or going through a divorce, or I don't want to separate, or infidelity, and all those things. So, or dating, being lonely, cynical, right? You're like a new officer, but you're like cynical. You don't want people around you. And I get it because, I get it. So I do one-on-one with law enforcement on a coaching side as well. So those are kind of my jams. My biggest thing that I love to do is public speaking. Like public speaking, I love that. I'm in the process of writing my book. I hope to have that out by
Good for
Christmas.
you.
Yeah, dude. It's just
Tall
such
order.
yes, it really is. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to mess this up. But you know how it is. But I'm like, I got this, babe. You're good. So those are some of the things that I'm doing. That's kind of the work that I'm doing. I love it. I love group work too. Not too long ago, I've been meeting a couple of female law enforcement officers that are still on. And it's so weird how it's all aligning, how these women, these core women that I met, they all have want to do the same thing that I want to do, which is kind of like
Mhm.
a retreat for women officers,
Yeah.
and have topics on relationships, have topic on mean girls. I don't know why women police officers treat each other so shitty. I don't know why we do that.
Yeah.
And just all these other things that women police officers go through in this male predominant field. And how can we come together, be stronger, and become these strong mentors for other young female officers that come on? So
Yeah.
that's hopefully something that I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for the crash course and paying it. Our industry has come a long way in our time since you came in, and I came in like just a little bit after.
Yeah.
Sure, but like to your point, like there's a lot of agencies that are like peer support sounds great, don't know how to do it. Or a
Mhm.
few years ago, doing this content, someone more from your neck of the woods actually reached out and was like, "I love what you say about peer support. I'm worried whether we can do it and not have it fall flat because of our gossip culture, small police department, all those things." And so there are different things to consider and navigate that. And then even you saying like the mean girls dynamic, and I can't speak to that personally, but I saw a really great article that I've shared out a couple times to people that I know, and it's in Police One. It's retired LT Jen Moss, but she kind of speaks to these different dynamics, and one of them is this like kind of this desire to protect your own, right? Like how hard it was, like
Oh,
maybe dealing with some sexism, dealing with this, and you're like, ooh, yeah, I don't know if you're cut out for this. So sometimes it is that like we select few, but also sometimes, as she shared, was like, I don't want you this to become you because of the stress and because of the unique challenges that you have to face. So
yeah.
I thought that was a super interesting article.
I'm gonna ask you for that name of that
Yeah,
article.
I'll find it and send it your way because I think it could be of relevance, especially to your group. When you were speaking, and I know that you hit a crash course, and I want to be mindful of time, but one of the things, and I think it's so significant for the younger generation coming up and coming in, is you're like, okay, even dating, and for me, I remember when I was a new cop, there are some people who are like, man, like date, you got it in the bag because you're a cop and all that, but I actually had the converse belief system. I was like, I feel myself changing, and there's so much stuff that I'm dealing with. Like, who would want to sign up for this BS? Like, you don't want to come alongside in the, the road of life with somebody that's a first responder. What are your thoughts on that, or helping people think through that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think that I know that I went through it as well. So who's going to want to be with me? And, for women as well, the thing that changes with us is we're in this male predominant field and we have to have a certain persona when we're in uniform. So, we kind of become very independent in that way. That can be kind of a turnoff to a guy, right? When you're changing your own tires and you're changing your own oil and you're doing all these things. And he's like, well, where's my role in this thing? So, what I would say to that is we have to do our due diligence. Like it has to have like nobody owes you anything. So if you see that you're alone, that you're lonely, but you want to date, but then your mindset is who's going to want to be with me? Nobody's going to want this. Who do we really need to look at to shift that?
Mm,
That's you against you, bro. That's you against you. So you need to look in the mirror and see if there's a problem, whether it's a low self-esteem issue, whether it's a true belief in who's going to want to be with me. Look at what I see every day and I bring this home. Nobody's going to want that. All right, well, let's talk about that. So then you have to do your due diligence in finding someone, whether it's a professional that you want to process that with, whether you want to process that with yourself. That's going to be a journey if you do it by yourself. I would highly recommend that you do it with someone, but it has to come from you. So the first thing you have to do is acknowledge, number one, I'm having this thought. Number two, I realize I'm putting that thought in my head and it's not a fact. It's an opinion. It's my opinion. Okay, why is that your opinion? I don't know why. Maybe I should talk to someone. Who would I talk to? And then you have to baby step your way through that. So for anybody listening, if that is you, ask yourself those questions because we talk so bad to ourselves about ourselves that we don't even recognize it. Man, nobody gonna want me. Look at me. I'm a female police officer. Nobody gonna deal with that. Pause. What did you just say?
mm,
And then process it that way. That would be my recommendation because it really is a you against you.
yeah,
You have to find that help. You have to find that support. You have to recognize that you are creating this. And how, okay, so now what? Do you
yeah.
want help? Do you want to talk about it? Do you actually want to love someone? How do you get there? You find somebody that you can relate to get help with.
The same thing that makes you a great cop is not, I mean, when we talk about problem solving, it's generally like staying curious and continuing to ask questions, but the right
Yeah.
questions, right? So why is that? Why is that? Okay, how is that? How would I prove this? How would I disprove this? Or what about that? Why would they say this? What would be their motivators? Like, and then to apply it to ourselves because we are great problem solvers, but we do or we don't flip it back on ourselves, like our own personal, call them problems or call them stuff, whatever it is, but applying that curious kind of, maybe that Socratic method or whatever, right? To ask all those questions. Well, Bev, this has been such a amazing conversation. Thank you so much for your time and joining in this. Can you please tell us where people can find you, your show, your trainings, access to reach out, say, hey, I want to talk one on one. I want you to come out to my agency. I want you to speak for our event, but also like what you'd like to leave the listeners with today.
So to find me on Instagram, it's at underscore BevyBev or at Bev Perez LC. My website is bevperez.com and all my information is on there. I'm an open book. I'm on LinkedIn as Marion Bev Perez. But I get DMs, my phone number is there, so they can contact me directly through there, DM me through there to get any information or any follow-ups or any connections that they want to make in the future. The only thing I want to leave people with is that my opinions and what I say comes from me. I'm not trying to represent or poorly talk about anybody or any agency. So this is all my words from me, from where I stand and how I see things. And lastly, I want to say that as corny as this may sound, it's always going to have to come from love, whatever it is, whatever hate you have towards this person, that person, this agency, this kind of community, whatever, it has to come from love, or else you're not going to be able to do any of the work that we actually need to do out here. Because there's just so much hate and it's so easy to hate. So it just stem from love. Anything that you do with anybody in any capacity. That's it. That's it. Yeah.
And I'll say, this has come up before, whether it's a guest or me, but when you have to preface it like, "Hey, this might sound corny," then it's probably a reason not to lean away, but to lean in because these are the things we know we should with our values, with our character, like we should know them to be true. But cynicism and all the pervasiveness of what the BS out there has clouded that, right? So let's be curious, right? Let's ask why. Why does that sound corny, and why does it sound unrealistic? Because you're absolutely right, and I appreciate so much that you're putting that message and that intention out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like the corny stuff that people have been saying for years. Why have they been saying it for years? You know, so
Ancient wisdom
yep,
for sure.
that's right. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you, Bev. Thank you for tuning into another episode of Blue Grit Radio. As always, support this community by subscribing, giving us a 5-star review, and following, liking, and sharing posts on Blue Grit Wellness on Instagram. You can reach me there or email me at bluegritwellness@gmail.com. Be well and stay gritty.